everybody, welcome to our How Do I've got a quick and easy one for you today. And hello, I'm Reva with Quality Sewing, and we really love that you're here with us. In fact, I want to say thanks to, man, some of you join us every week live, and of course some of you watch recorded, which is fine too, but thanks for being here and joining us this morning. Every week, if you didn't know, every week we do a How Do I live, and so you know, send us information if you have a question or you want us to do something, you know, maybe we'll do it. But this one, I was working with my serger just recently, and I was pulling out my stitches, and I thought, oh my goodness, I really need to share this, because how many of us have sergers and oh, you may not sew just quite right, you know, that's just the way it goes. So I thought I would share with you a quick and easy ways to get your serger stitches out. Now, a serger does basically two kinds of stitches with variations, right? You can do the overcast, which encapsulates the edge of the fabric. It trims, it does a clean finish, and it keeps it so the fabric doesn't fray all over yourself. Think about that flannel nightgown that your mom made you, and you had all the strings wrapping around your legs after you washed it. It was, at least that's how my mom sewed. Anyhow, so that's what a serger would take care of, and it's so fast and so quick. Then you also have the cover hem side, if you have a machine that can do a cover hem. So like this one is the Baby Lock Triumph, which I absolutely love. So I've got 4 threads set up here for the 4th thread, and then I have my chain stitch and my 2 needles here set up for the cover hem. And that gives you, the cover hem will let you, it lets you hem like knit fabrics. If you look at the bottom of your t-shirt, you see the 2 parallel rows of stitches, but they're nice and stretchy. That is done by a cover hem machine. Now also, you can use just 1 needle instead of 2, and then you can have a chain stitch. The chain stitch, if it's in an accompaniment with the 4th thread, that's what you find on the inside of your jeans or your ready-to-wear garments that you purchase from the store. That's a professional finish that overcasts the edges and it sews the seam all at the same time. And that safety chain stitch is a really nice secure stitch that holds the seam beautifully. But it can be a challenge to take out because it's not just you know, a simple up down with the needle. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So I have here, we're gonna do some big zooming in here, and so we'll see if I can do that, how well I can do that. I've got both edges here done with a 4th thread. Now a 4th thread, hang with me, I've got illustrations. A 4th thread has, well, like I said, 4 threads, so you're gonna see them here. So I have right there, I have 1 thread on the top going back and forth, right? Everything's backwards to me, and then 1 thread on the back going back and forth, but then you have a straight stitch coming right here, that's 1 needle, and then that red one is another one. Okay, you with me on that? So let's see if we can zoom in here on this little guy, and I want to show you how this works. So we can just pick one side, I don't care, whichever side it gets in there. Look, it's coming to this side right here. So if you notice, oh, that's great, look at that. So I have a yellow needle, and then I have a green needle, and I have kind of a pink thread on top. On the back, I have a blue thread. But notice there's no needle back on the back side. All the needle thread is on the front. Okay? So for a 4th thread, the easiest way to unstitch a 4th thread is to turn it over to the back. Now it's easy to know which is the front and which is the back on this because I have the brightly colored thread there, and I have a blue fabric and blue thread on the back. Did you get what I did there? B for blue and back. I know, it's brilliant, right? Anyhow, so if you're going to try this out and just do some test squares like I have here, then feel free to put different colors in so you can see where the different needles and different loopers are making their stitches. So if I want to take this out, the easiest way to do that is to take a little pair of scissors, and I'm simply going to slide my scissor into the back thread and just cut the back thread. Look at that. Because remember, the back thread is all one thread. So if I cut that, then nothing's holding the front together. Does that make sense? Okay, you see how I cut those threads? Now let's go to the front side and watch what happens. You just pull and it comes right out. Isn't that easy? So much easier than the alternative, right? And then for your little bits here, you can pick them all out, or if you get a piece of like masking tape, just stick it on there and it'll pull them right out. So that's pretty cool. By the way, that arrow, that means I started here and I sewed this direction. Okay, isn't that cool? So that's just such a fast and easy way to do that on your a regular serger seam. Okay, now let's talk about another thing that you can use on your serger seams. So you can do it like a normal, how we would open up, and then you can, so let's get in there again. If I give this a little pull, see my yellow and green stitches? I can come in there and I can slip them, then pull a little bit more and snip them and pull a little bit more. So you can do that too. The other thing you could use is one of these really great Kai Serger stitch removers. So I'm going to slide this back a little bit so I could set it down, and I guess we're going to get a little bit of focus in there. But what I'm going to do with this, how this works, is it's got a razor in there, but you see the little teeth? That's a guard so you won't cut yourself. Kind of handy. Okay, and then this, you just would run it in here and it will cut the threads, and look at how much faster that is than a pair of scissors in doing the same thing. So 6 of one, half dozen of another. It might be a little bit faster to unpick using this than the method I showed you by cutting, but still they're both pretty quick, and they give you all this beautiful confetti, you know, all that stuff. Anyway, okay, so that's how you take out that type of serger stitch. Now we have a couple of other serger stitches to look at, and by the way, this little tool from Kai is very inexpensive. All of our stores have it. We have them in the warehouse. So if you want one of those, you can go to QualitySewing.com and you can pick that up very inexpensively. Okay, let's talk about a cover hem. The cover hem is that little stitch that I mentioned that's on the bottom of your t-shirt. So you got the 2 threads on top. I have kind of a turquoise and an orange on the top, and then I have a purple on the back side. Now here's a tip. If you're using a cover hem, if you can mark it and straddle the raw edge, see how this is folded up here? Let me get in here. See how this has been folded? I folded up a hem, and then what I did when I stitched it, you stitch from the top here, right? Well, yeah, you stitch from the top here. I straddled that raw edge of the hem, so the hem's raw edge is totally encapsulated in that serger stitch, which is really, really pretty awesome. Okay, so I started sewing at the top here, and then I went down and ended right there. Okay, so I want to show you a couple of different ways to get this one out. So maybe we'll just back up a smidgy on the image. And this is the side that I started on. This is the side that I ended on. And here is what that back side of that stitch looks like. Okay, so it's one thread that is going back and forth, kind of like the looper was on, the blue looper was on the other one, but this is inside the fabric, not on an edge. Okay, so I started up here, so I'm going to work down here first. So if you look at the back, we have that little kind of braided or ladder part of it here. So if I wanted to remove that, one way we could do it is come in here and just cut that center stitch. That's it. Excuse me. Then I'm going to come here, just give it a little bit of love, and grab and pull that stitch. If I can do that with my fingers. And that comes right out. Isn't that cool? Now, let me show you another way to do that. I started stitching here and stitched down. this stitch that it creates on the back will lock. But if you come to the part where you ended, not the part you started, but where you ended it, if you get that little thread end to pop up, you can grab it, and then you can simply, oops, I didn't simply anything. Let me get another one. I'm going to just trim it off, and let me get that thread out. Then you can pull the thread, but not while you're trying to show everybody. Isn't that the way it goes? You can just pull the thread and it will come off. There we go. There it goes. Just pulls right out. The positive side of this is that you end up with one big long thread, not a bunch of little hairy threads. And then you see my little turquoise and orange there. Just flip over to the other side and just rip those out. Isn't that cool? So very fast and easy. This side's a lot cleaner. This one is hairy and just needs some tape or some, a little shave, right? So that's really, really a simple way to get out a cover hem. The thing with getting out a cover hem, and we're going to do a chain stitch next, the thing about getting that out is that you really need to know which direction in which you stitched it. So when you're sewing your hems, your pieces together, and you are looking at your fabric, one way to know whether you started here or ended here is if it's a straight stitch on the one side and a chubby chain stitch on the back, your raw edge will be to your right. Okay, so then that's telling me I started up here, because you sew it, you're sewing a seam, right? So you have your seam allowance to the right, and then as you stitch, you're stitching, and then you end up down here. Okay, so the same type of principle is going to apply to the chain stitch as it did to the cover hem. And that is when you go to remove it, it won't unravel from the starting side, it only unravels from the ending side. Okay, so if you get to the end of your seam and you go, oh no, then you can go back to the end of the seam and undo it. Okay, so how that works, this is my top, so I'm going to go over here to my end, and I have my little tail there, and what I'm going to do is angle it so you can see it. I'm just going to come and chop that little guy off right close. Okay? Then what I'm going to do is just use my scissor to get him to open up. And there is my tail. And all I have to do is pull on that tail. Okay? Now, I'm going to try to be an artist before I pull any more. I want to show you how that works because, well, here's what that looks like. Okay, so if this were my piece, let me think again. If I'm going to pull a piece out and it's going to undo itself, hold on. I'm confused. I should have written my notes. So it has to undo from this side first, because this chain needs to come out so that one can release. Does that make sense? So it's this little thread. We're working from the back. So we're going to cut that, right? So I'm going to pull this thread, and that's going to then come in, because it's going to be loose, and it's going to come in and undo, and it's going to undo the chain. So when you look at this, and this is, and I'm going to tell you this right now, it's going to be hard to tell, really, because it depends on the thread that you're working with and all that sort of stuff. But it seems like when I look at it, my stitch looks a little bit like this, and then it hooks another one, but it seems like it's more rounded at my ending point. So you're just gonna have to look. The real trick is figure out where the end was, not the beginning. Okay? All right, so I see some of you are getting that. Okay, so I'm going to take this thread. Are you ready for this? Wowza, look at it, it's all gone. Now all I have to do is pull out that orange thread, and it's all unstitched. I mean, seriously, isn't that amazing? So think about, I know the first place that my mind goes to when I'm talking about, oops, I made an error and I need to undo the stitch. Well, that's one thing, you know. But think about if you're doing, making a top or a pair of pants for the first time and you want to make sure it fits. You could do a chain stitch and then you know that you can easily remove it and you don't have to sit there and unpick it forever. I mean, right? Isn't that cool? So let me do that again. So here's the right side, right? Oops, oops, oops. There we go. Here's my right side. How do I know that's the right side? It's because the top has a straight stitch. The back side has the chubby chain stitch. Okay. And this is the same type of stitch that they put on a dog food bag. And if you look at it that way, if you look at your dog food bag as in the seam allowance is the top of the bag, then you're going to know that that's the end, not the top, because you don't know, right? But so start from that side on your dog food bag. Okay, so I've got this, and if I were to cut the top of it, right, cut that off, and there I have a purple tail, and I pull it, nothing happens because that's the top. It locks in. It won't unstitch from the top. But if we go to the bottom and we trim that nice and tight, then what I'm going to look for is, I want to give it some little bit of love because remember we just cut it. So here's one piece. Look, there's one piece of that thread right there. Then here's the other end right there. That's the one I want to pull. And oops, it didn't work. I mean, that's the way life goes. Sometimes that's the way it is. So just go back in and try it again. And the reason why is because it's underneath that orange thread and I need it to come up the top. Let's get that guy out of there. Come on, you can do it. I promise you can. Well, for heaven's sakes, you know what? If you don't want to play nice, I'm going to just chop you off. Okay, so we got him out of there, and then, look, I already started to pull it, and I started pulling it now. Only on camera. Okay, there it is. There it is. So now we just pull that out, and it's la la la, gone. La la la, gone. I love that. So much better than just using your seam ripper, because your seam ripper is going to leave you lots of tiny, tiny strands that you have to pick out, little pieces. But this should save you a lot of time. So I hope this is going to help you do some of that reverse sewing and get it done quickly for you so you can move on to the next thing. Also, if you're doing any type of ready-to-wear upcycling and you need to take out that seam, these work on that too. So just remember, if you're taking out a chain stitch, look for the straight stitch on the top, the chain on the bottom, and look at it and analyze it. Where is my seam allowance in relation to that? And the bottom is where you can go. You can go bottom up to remove out your stitches. If you're working with a ready-to-wear and you have the this guy, just the regular standard stitch, just either cut those threads or grab yourself one of the Serger, the little Serger seam rippers, and just take that right out, and then you can upcycle, you can decorate, you can do all sorts of fun things. But hopefully that makes your life better, and have some masking tape at your sewing station so you can control that mess. Anyhow, we look forward to seeing you next week at our next How Do I.